Hello and welcome in, everyone. My name is Hong Min, and I'm part of the Careers and Professional Development team here at WGU. We're so excited to have you here as we wrap up our Career Transition Week. This week is designed to support anyone thinking about making a career pivot, exploring new opportunities, or redefining what success means to them. Today's presenter is someone I had the pleasure of connecting with recently, and she's not just a bold leader, but she's an absolute gem in her community. After hearing her story and the intentional way she approaches both life and work, I knew she'd be an incredible addition to this week. It's my pleasure to introduce My Luu, former CPA, now learning and HR leader, and also co-founder of LifeSpark Labs. Her session today is titled The Career Pivots That Changed Everything. And in this conversation, she'll share how discomfort became fuel for growth and what felt like a detour became the very place she's meant to be. So with that, I will go ahead and pass things over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Hannah. Oh, I'm getting blushy with the introduction. So excited to be here today and get to know each of you and share my story in the hopes that somehow it helps in your story and where it is that you want to go next. And feel free to ask any questions in the chat while I'm talking, and would love for this to be as conversation as it can be. So just think of us like getting some coffee together, and we're walking around and learning about each other. So, as I mentioned, my name is Mai, and I am currently the co-founder and chief impact officer at LifeSpark Labs. We're a video game company that helps you discover your career path. And where I am today would never have been where I thought I would be. And so I'd love to share a little bit of how I got to this place that I've been, and just share that as a spark for our conversation today. So it kind of goes back, honestly, to a bit about my background and who I am. And so, from a personal perspective, I identify as a Vietnamese Chinese American and grew up in a small town outside of Houston, Texas. And my parents are refugees who came over to the United States following the Vietnam War. And so that's an important part of my story. And I start there because so much of our decision making when we're younger and when we're thinking about our first career decisions comes from a place of what we know and the environments that we're a part of. And so, consciously, unconsciously, I had a lot of values that were attributed to safety, security, being able to, fit in and being able to, follow what's expected of me, and to do that in a way that, you can be a good girl. You need to be the good girl that follows the rules for many different reasons. And so that was a lot of my decision making process in my first career that I decided to go through after school. And so I decided to go into accounting, very stable, very safe career, and very much kind of checked those boxes of, a good job that is stable and safe. And that's what I did my studies in. And so my undergrad experience, I decided to go to college to pursue an accounting degree in business, and went ahead after that to pursue a CPA license as well too. And for those of you who aren't familiar with like a CPA process, it's a four-part. When I was taking it, it was a four-part, pretty extensive exam that you have to pass all within a certain time window to get your certification. And so it was a pretty like sometimes like many year process, and it's definitely a lot of work to get that credential. And so did a lot of my undergrad and ultimately my master's in accounting and got that CPA. And then I was like, yes, I've got it. I'm going to go be successful now because I've got these papers that suggest I'm successful. So graduated, and also was able to secure a job offer at one of the big four accounting firms. And so I was like, yes, I've really made it. I've been successful. And interestingly, I started that work, and I did it in my hometown out in Houston, and started the work. And within the first, I would say maybe the first year or two, I realized that I did not enjoy it. I did not enjoy it. And, um, it's so interesting. I spent so many years trying to get to this goal. And I don't know if I really stopped to think about if this is actually a goal that I wanted, or was it a goal that was expected of me? And so in those first years, I was really lost in my work. And so it was just such a cognitive dissonance because I'm on one side logically like, hey, I'm financially independent. Like you've done the thing that you were set out to do and you achieved that goal. But at the same time, like, why does it feel so unfulfilling? And why do I still feel this kind of emptiness or this, what I like to call this like itch that like doesn't, like I can't scratch it. I just, something doesn't feel right. And so decided to think about what I can do to change my current situation. I thought, maybe if I go to a different environment, that would change the quality of my life. And so ended up relocating to San Francisco, which is where I currently am today. And I was like, yes, this will change my circumstances. And it did not. So as beautiful as blessed and grateful I am to be in the Bay Area, it still did not change the quality of life where my work really fit what I wanted to do. And so then I felt lost and trying to figure out, well, what do I do now? And so it was really through this process of talking to anyone or everyone that I knew that could help me unpack all of that. And so I had to do this kind of self reflection of what are the things that I did like and what were the things that I did enjoy about the work. And Marta, that's a great question. What made me finally realize accounting wasn't for me? It was how I felt at the end of the day. After doing a day's work, it was like, okay, like, did I feel good about what I did today? And on average, I had hoped to feel like a sense of like, yeah, purpose, that, or a sense of excitement for the work, a sense of, oh, yay, I want to go to work on some days. I recognize I didn't have to feel that every single day, but I didn't feel like what I was doing was making the impact I wanted to with the people around me, with the people that are part of my communities, the people that, like the world more broadly. And then I think personally as well, I just didn't feel excited for the work. And so I think those were some signals within me that even though I had a stable job, like on paper, like what's wrong with you, Ma? You have a job. And the other context I would add too is when I graduated, it was at the time of a recession. And so it was to get a sense of the environment from a financial perspective and a kind of macroeconomic perspective. It was the type of time frame where people would sometimes have job offers and they would be rescinded and they would be taken back by the employer. Or in my case, like sometimes they had a job offer and it was reduced. So like whatever the compensation was actually got cut. And so it was very much, it amplified my feelings of security, safety, like just be grateful you got a job, Mai. And so that also kind of propelled me to continue down with that accounting path. And so doing that for a few years, even changing the location, didn't kind of help fix those itchy feelings, those like something doesn't feel right feelings. And so then I had those conversations around, well, what do I like? I think I like things that relate to understanding my team. I think I like things like really deeply understanding people. I think I like things that are related to learning. And it wasn't until like a friend of a friend of a friend that I happened to learn about this concept of organizational psychology. And that was a totally new field I had never heard about. I had heard of like a psychologist, like a clinical psychologist, you go to therapy and like, kind of that setting, but what the heck is an organizational psychologist? And so through that experience, um, there was a school local in the San Francisco Bay Area that had offered masters in organizational psychology. And so I actually went to one of their classes and kind of did an audit of it and sat in and just thought, oh my gosh, these are my people. Like, these are my people. We love to talk about things related to norms and team values and like things that are like the squishy, soft human side of work. And that's when I realized like I found my peoples that I wanted to nerd out with together and really where I wanted to shape my impact and also aligned to my areas of strength. Um, I think there was a question in the chat around like, well, why did I stay longer? Was it because of my coworkers? I think that was part of it. We were kind of like going through this experience together of like, oh, we're all kind of early career professionals trying to figure it out. Um, and so part of it was being able to stay with some of the coworkers I have. I will say to this day, though, I'm still working on some of those relationships, but a lot of the ones, we had diverged in so many different paths. So I think that was maybe like an initial reason why I stayed, but having like relocated to a different city, I also had to set up like a new friend circle. So that probably wasn't like the thing that held me there the longest. It was really more of like, I want to figure out a way to pivot that feels authentic to me. And that's going to take some time. And I didn't want to rush into a decision making process. I think that was more of the reason why I stayed longer than I did was I really wanted to be, I had to research like what my next step was. And so when I made the decision to go back to school while working full time, that was really hard. But the reason why I did that was because there was now this reason that it was my choice. So it was the first time that I went to school because I wanted to learn the topics and I wanted to know more about these areas of teaming and working and the theory behind work at and that was a higher level of engagement for me. So I enjoyed going to school. All the things I didn't like about that first time I went to school, this time I enjoyed it. I looked forward to the homework and looked forward to meeting with my colleagues at school. It was an in-person type of classroom. And at the same time was working as well. So I did a career pivot, my first, from accounting into learning and development. And it was an internal positional move. And I remember that there was not 100% support for that the career move for me. I think well-meaning individuals were like, "Ma, are you sure? Like that that sounds like you're like not doing a job that challenges you, or you're doing something that doesn't align anything to your experiences. Are you sure?" And it was, I had to reach a point of conviction of be like, you know what, thank you. And yeah, I'm going to do it anyways. And that kind of sense of peace and confidence in myself, even though I literally had no idea what was going to happen, there was something that was very grounding about that discomfort that I felt that I was willing to push through because my inner gut knew that it was the right move, even though logically it didn't make sense on paper. And so, being prepared for not to justify, but to be able to know for yourself this is the right move, even if not everyone around you will agree. And again, it wasn't like malicious at all. It was just like, are you sure? So yeah, so then I decided to go work at the same time while in school. So I would do work for 8+ hours a day, and then go to school thereafter for a few hours, and then had no social life on the weekends and did homework and schoolwork. And I did that for 3 years. And while I was in this kind of first career pivot into learning and development, it was more kind of like the events side of learning. So think about like the in-classroom experience, like organizing the materials, setting up the facilities for the training, meeting the instructors. So it was a little bit more event space. And again, like literally had nothing to do with my CPA license. And um, I had to also come to terms with, yes, I spent lots of money and time and energy to earn that CPA license, and be able to let that go a little bit because some of that technical knowledge might not apply in this new role, and having to make peace with that, and on top of the shame spiral of, oh my gosh, Ma, you shamed your whole family, like you were supposed to be an accountant and now you're going to change. But really thinking about those values that I had starting to evolve into the values that I wanted to carry forward with me, which is really uncomfortable, but you know yes, exactly. Dishonor on you, dishonor on family, yes. So I had to make peace with that, and then ultimately finished school and moved up into the learning organization and did things all the way from kind of the needs analysis of what is it that we're trying to solve for at the organization, and how do we design an effective training to meet those needs. And when I finished my master's in org psychology, I really moved into this space of almost like creating like mini startups within a large organization, where I really found joy and excitement in starting something from scratch. So leading multiple learning technology programs that reach scales of millions of people, and being able to do things that were never possible before, and bringing a team along on that journey was just like, yes, I love this stuff. And it's really hard at the same time. So I really found a lot of joy in doing that type of work. Um, after being in learning and development for a few years, that itch kind of came back again. And it was just like, no, like, why? Why are we itchy again? But the itchiness was coming from a place of, I know that learning is oftentimes an effective intervention in organizations, but I really wanted to broaden my impact beyond the learning environment. And so that's when I was thinking about kind of my training and background in org psychology, and what if I could grow that into a field of work that is broader, like the entire company policies and procedures and culture, such as human resources. And so that's what made me jump into learning and development into human resources. And so I became a global people strategies and experience leader at that same organization. So it really was kind of jumping from just learning, which is already a large scope of work, into broader employee experience, employee lifecycle work, and really had a lot of fun doing that. It was a global role, so I'm in San Francisco, so think about really early morning calls at 4 a.m. with like the East Coast and European time zones, to like really late calls in the evening, afternoons with like Asia Pacific, those kind of regions. So like having a global role is awesome, and also really impacts your life. So think about that. And so ultimately, I was in that role for a while before I had a former colleague of mine who actually was one of the professors that I really enjoyed while I was at Golden Gate University, the local school where I got my master's. And there was a role that was open on his team at a cancer care technology startup. And I thought about it, and I had to say yes, because the the past years of my experience had been at this one organization, and I was ready to spread my wings broader, and to do that kind of in a startup environment where, again, I had to start from scratch. So I said yes and made that big leap. And so that was my next kind of pivot from global people strategies and experience into being ultimately the head of HR at that organization. And so it was really hard and really fulfilling at the same time. And I reported to the CEO, so I had huge levels of autonomy. Um, and then from there, I really had a lot of things going on in my life. So that was my professional journey. In parallel, my partner and I, we got married in 2015. We were also going through a personal fertility journey and starting our family. And so everything kind of came to a head in May of 2023, where we were blessed with our very first baby girl. Her name is Madison, and we had her in May. And I was also laid off in that same month. So you can probably think, oh my gosh, all of those life crises happening at one time, big life-changing moments colliding together. And just for the record, it was not anything shady or anything going on. It was just the nature of startups. Sometimes they don't work. And so the whole company was let go at the same time. So it was just unusual timing for everyone, and just the fact of startups, right? It's the risky side of them. And so in that year, if you had talked to me in 2023, I would have been like near tears all the time, just with all the different changes and the discomfort of just like, who am I now with my identity as a new parent? Who am I now as someone who has never been laid off before and now having to have no work? And so having to rebuild that sense of identity and worth and separating that from my career was a very painful process, because then it was like, well, how much did I value myself if I wasn't producing something? How much was I important to society or to myself if I wasn't doing something that was purposeful? And so all these different narratives that I had inherited, all these different stories I had told myself, and having to unpack and shed, where did those come from? Are they still serving me? While also being sleep deprived and not knowing what to do with this like blob of a child at the same time. So to culminate all of that, 2023 was like a rebuilding year for me and a self-discovery. Again, kind of another pivot, because it led me to reconnect with my now co-founder. Her name is Amber. She was the chief operating officer at the time of the cancer care tech startup that I worked at. And so she and I really bonded with each other while we were at that startup together. And we call each other work sisters. We just clicked. And so as I was thinking about what happens after 2023 and where I'm going to go back to work, right? Like I was telling myself, you're going to go quote back to work. And that meant like going to interview for jobs again and just like kind of re-networking and just trying to stick my toe back into like the working world again as a new mom. And I reconnected with Amber. And interestingly, I also, had the opportunity and got like a job offer during this time as well too when I was thinking about going back. And I made the illogical decision to not accept the job offer. And I could not explain to you why I didn't, other than it just didn't feel right. Um, because on paper, it was like, you just got laid off. You need to go back and make money for the family, and you just have a kid. Like, why aren't you going back to work? And it was again this feeling of like this itchiness of if I fast forward and accepted this, like how would this make me feel? And there was something that was in my gut telling me that this was not the right path for me right now. And so in continuing the conversations with Amber, she and I said, maybe this is the time for us to do the thing that we were never supposed to do or never thought we could do. And so we decided to start a company together. And with my background in org psychology and specifically around reimagining what the pathway to careers could look like, I was like, yes, let's do it. And so through my own journey of having a really difficult time figuring out my career path, I was like, there has to be a better way. And so I got really, really clear on my two purposes in life. One is to be the best version of myself for my family. And then two is to make the world a more equitable place. And so for me, with LifeSpark Labs, my goal is to have every young person have the opportunity and the information they need to make the best career decisions and be able to do that, in our case, through a video game where it meets them where they are without the pressure, without these other external forces that are impacting that decision process. Because what if young Mai, who became an accountant, had a way to discover maybe that wasn't the right path for you? And maybe you could have explored something like org psychology earlier on. And where would my path have been without kind of those detours that I had? So I'll kind of close this out to say that with our focus on, what I would say like career navigation and the intersection of well-being, like who are you when you are your best and what are the things that energize you? All of that needs to go into the decision-making process of the careers that best align and when you need to pivot. And that's unique to each of us and requires help, support, education, learning, opportunity, systems that work for us to really be able to find the careers that really spark us. And so I'll close with I am so grateful for my journey because it brought me to where I am today. And there also has to be a better way to navigate through this. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mai. That was fantastic. Thank you for sharing such honest and inspiring story as well. So we'll go ahead and open up for questions. If you want to get off mute, just simply raise your hand and we'll pass the mic over to you. Or, you can drop your question into the chat and I'll make sure to facilitate those out. I think there was one here from Marta. How was your experience with employers when interviewing for a new role?
Great question. For me, I'll speak to it from the internal roles that I applied for, and then I'll speak to it for the external roles I applied for. So when I did my first few career pivots into learning and development and into global people strategies, those are what I call like internal positional moves. So it was at the same company, but we still had to apply for different roles. They were totally different teams. The company I was working for was like hundreds of thousands of people. So it was like a giant company. And so I still had to interview for each of those positions and kind of go through that negotiating process. And so really the big things were the transferable skills and evidencing those skills through my applied success stories and impact stories. And two, really the networking. Over the years I was there, I had built such strong relationships with someone that happened to know someone who someone is someone, and that was like, oh yeah, Mai's been able to deliver on this, this, and this. And so a lot of the times my brand had preceded me in these interview conversations in a good way. But that was through like my own hard work over the years, like advocating for myself and trying to share with others like the things that I was doing, and um, trying to do that like authentically, because I know sometimes that can feel like icky and like self-serving and not genuine. So I kind of found my own way of doing it that felt authentic and with those that I knew that could help me in the future, and that I just really connected with. So for the internal roles, those transferable skills and being able to point to like that thing over there, I made that, or that thing over there, I built that, and here's who told me, who's on that team with me, and that can validate for that. And then from an external perspective, similar experiences as well too, the transferable skills, because this group literally knows nothing about me, and um, being able to show impact through numbers and qualitative, quantitative impact was really ways that I think kind of helped me through the external recruiting process. And I think the big thing for me too is translating the jargon from one company to another company, because every single company you work for has like a specific communication norm. They have like their specific technical jargon. And I remember when I first left that big company, I was using all that jargon. So one example is like using the term human capital. I feel like very few orgs use the term human capital. Could be, maybe this is a debate for another conversation, but if you have to explain what that word means, it's probably not the best word to use in an interview. So like using words that are very common language that can help you build to what I like to call like getting to the next date, getting to the next level of the conversation. And then when you're at the point where you're meeting someone that's technical, then you can bring on all the jargon and the technical stuff because they'll be able to converse with you on it. So being able to translate the things I did in one company to another in a way that's not jargony or overwhelming helps to get you through the front door, and doing it with impact. And then once you get to someone who speaks the language, you can probably pull out the jargony stuff there.
Those are awesome tips. Thank you so much. This one was a little bit more of a comment, but I do want to just point it out from Jintea. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but letting go of previous educational efforts is very hard. It's difficult to navigate feeling like that was time wasted. And I know, Ma, you kind of mentioned too, even though you went through that, like some of those skills still follow you into your new journey. And in one of our sessions too, that was a helpful reminder to not not let yourself feel like that was wasted. Because at one point in your life, that was something that was helping you grow, helping you learn. Next question here.
100%. Yeah. I would add to that
Yes.
as well, Hoon, that it's just
Yes.
like definitely not wasted. And the it's like I got what I needed. I got what I needed from that experience too. And it's like thank you and move on. It's kind of like I don't know if any of y'all watch like Marie Kondo, and when you're cleansing stuff out, you like say thank you to the shirt, say thank you to the pair of pants, and thank you for serving me, and then you let her go. It was kind of like that, if I'm being honest. So it's like that CPA, that accounting stuff, it served its purpose, and it still is. Like it's the network I
Mhm.
built through those years together that helped me go into this next chapter. So definitely agree.
Yes. This next question we get a lot from our students. The comment was, "This was so inspiring. I'm curious, do you have any tips on overcoming imposter syndrome?"
Ooh. So this might be controversial, but I actually do not like that word. And the reason why is because so much of that is something that is the systems that we are a part of. And for us to internalize it's something that is my fault, or something that is something that is something wrong with me, I don't like to put the focus of control on us. So what I mean by that is, um, if you're in the room where everyone thinks that it's raining, and you're the only one that's like I don't think it's raining, and you get like kind of pushed into believing it's raining right now, it's really hard to go against the norm. And if everything around you suggests that you can't do this, you can't do this, and you're trying to push against it, it's not that you're the problem, it's the system around you. It's the rain that's pouring on you that has been like perpetuating this narrative. But that being said, we're in an environment that a lot of the places that we're a part of do kind of project norms, cultural values of things, that of messages that suggest that you're not good enough. Or there's this comparison game of like, well, Susie's doing it, so I need to be able to do what Susie's doing. Um, the imposter syndrome, I would say like one part of it is like giving yourself grace, knowing what I just shared, that some of it is not actually about you at all. It's actually about the places that you've been that haven't accepted your brilliance and your badassery, right? And has pushed you down to be like a smaller version of yourself, or has formed you to fit in this box that you were not supposed to be in anyways. And so sometimes that discomfort of like, well, I don't fit in here, or I'm not doing what I'm supposed to, or I'm not doing what everyone else is supposed to, is because, yeah, you weren't meant to do that box, but you kind of had to because you're in the environment. So giving yourself that grace to be allowing other perspectives in that, maybe I'm not supposed to be here, and that's a good thing, you know? That's kind of like one mentality I would offer. And then the other part of it is like this kind of like self-healing journey of the stories that we tell ourselves. One of my stories I told myself is like, you need to be quiet and you need to follow the rules all the time. And going through this own journey for myself of like, well, why do I think that? Where did I get that from? Why do I need to be quiet? Why do I always have to follow the rules? And it was like, well, I always have. Well, why? Kind of like the 5 whys exercise. And this is something that's an awesome journal entry too, or journal prompt if you want to reflect on it. Asking yourself these whys of like, why do I tell these stories to myself? Where did that story come from? Well, why? Well, why? And so that's why I started my story from the background of kind of my upbringing, of kind of internalizing some of the things that um, my wonderful, amazing parents had brought, because I would not be here in this world without them. And also, I was like, that might not be serving me anymore. Let me reevaluate. Like, no, I'm not going to be quiet. No, I don't have to follow your rules. No, I don't like this culture, so I'm going to build my own. So, just giving yourself the space and the permission, just be yourself unapologetically. And if this is not the space, then it's not the space, and it's not you. So controversial, but that's kind of been my journey with imposter syndrome, is that sometimes it is a function of the orgs that we're a part of, the places we've been, and it's also part self-healing of like, where did I get that from? And what do I need to let go? And what can I bring forward with me?
Yes, thank you for that, Mai. Next one here from Angela. Thank you, Mai. Your journey of realization for your first career wasn't the right fit resonates with me. I appreciate hearing about the different roles within HR as I continue to pursue my pivot from education to HR. Awesome. What would you say are a couple of key HR competencies I should work to highlight through my transferable skills on my resume?
Ooh, great question. I would say, honestly, for HR and for any industry, truly, a lot of what's happening with AI is disrupting how organizations do work, how we hire, how we retain, how we promote, how we grow, how like all these things about how organizations will work in the future. Um, and so being able to articulate as a human resources leader what my point of view on that is, and myself being on top of like different technologies and building my own set of agents to help me in my own work is actually going to be important as you think about um, your pivot from education to HR, because um, we might have all heard that phrase of like, it's not AI or tech that's going to take your job. It's the person that uses AI that's going to take your job. And so we would really want to build out the competencies on how to think about AI in the context of workforce and development, workforce growth, all the things in the employee life cycle are impacted directly by HR and AI. And so definitely think about AI's impact on HR as a competency. The other impact of other competencies I would focus on is being able to communicate with influence. So depending on the organization that you're a part of, HR often falls under operations, or worse, legal, which is like, oh no, like that is the worst place to be in. Um, and so a lot of the times, depending on where HR sits in a company, you have to be able to influence people along on that journey. So it's not enough to say to like, it's not enough to just say, hey, we should do this. Why isn't the organization moving along with my recommendation? You have to bring every single stakeholder along in that journey. And HR has the privilege to be in a cross-functional role where we see everything at an organization. It's a privilege and a curse at the same time. So being able to communicate with influence and adapt to each audience and what's important to them so that we can go towards a continuous goal together and be aligned on that goal. That process takes time, energy, practice, effort, and really deeply understanding your stakeholders and their problems so that you can achieve your problems, goals to your problems and solutions to your problems. So really, AI impacts communicating with influence, deeply understanding your stakeholders, and communicating effectively with them.
Yes, those are great tips. Thank you for that question there. Next one here, I think we have from Brittany. Did you adjust your resume to translate the jargon for each role you applied to?
Yes, always adjust your resume to the job, 100% every single time. Um, when I did internal roles, I would adjust the jargon because at least this company used the same jargon. And so I would use the jargon that is like specific to that function. So for example, we had different lines of business. And so I would say like lines of business is a jargony word, but they understood what that means. And so like I was in the audit line of business or the tax line of business. And so I would absolutely tailor the resume for the job. And specifically, if the job says needs to be able to communicate impactfully with stakeholders, literally use that in your like skills and experience. My lead and impact stakeholders, like literally use that same language, same tense of verb. And there's a bunch of different AI resume tools out there, and we won't go into that, but 100% must adjust your resume to the role. And that includes dialing the jargon down or keeping it because you know your audience of who you're interviewing with. So it's always this theme of like knowing your audience and you tailor your communication to them so that you get your
Yes,
message
thank you.
across. Mhm.
Yes. Next one here from Melissa. Thank you for sharing your story and experience. I'm going through a career change myself at this time, so your experience has been very insightful. First
Yay.
question, yeah, did you have to take a pay cut to pursue your passion, and how did you navigate around that?
Yes. So when I think about that first pivot from accounting into learning and development, it was it a pay cut? I can't even remember anymore. But maybe that's a sign that, in hindsight, it might have been. But at some point, it was more important to pivot than to look at the numbers of my paycheck because I already made the decision before of, I looked at my paycheck before and I wasn't happy. So if I look at that same number as my driving principle, again, will that get me to a different outcome? So I want to say it maybe was a slight pay cut. But I remember feeling the hard decision for me was also like, you are actually about to get considered for promotion. Like it was at a inflection point in my accounting career. And so it was like, well, why don't you just go get promoted and, get that increased salary? You're I'm pretty sure you're going to be able to get it. Like this is myself. I was very confident in being able to get it. There was no like signals that confirmed that, but I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get a promotion. And so I was like, why don't you just go get that promotion, Mai? And I fast forwarded, if I got that promotion, would that align more to the goals that I wanted? And it was like, even if I had gotten that promotion, even if I got that increased salary, I would have also gotten increased work, which would have taken time away from my schoolwork. I would have gotten more increased other things that would have distracted from this field of psychology that I wanted to go into. And so I want to say, yes, a slight decrease in pay. And I did think about that as far as my life at the time, and I still went ahead with it.
Next question here, as a follow-up to that, did you ever think about going back?
To the company, I think, or
I think maybe to the first role, like CPA.
oh, hmm. I would be lying if I didn't say like, oh, I didn't make the right move, or there was absolutely periods of like me questioning myself. And so, while I'm speaking to you today, kind of very confidently about these decisions, I want to be very clear. In the time that I was making these moves, I was like very uncertain at the same time. It doesn't feel good. It feels very uncomfortable. There's no future predictor tool that's going to tell me exactly what's going to happen. And so there was this certain level of trust. So yeah, there were times where I'm like, man, I could easily just go back. Like I know what that world is like. and I'm comfortable there, even if it's like not exactly what I want to do. But then I would do things like talk to my friends of like, why am I making this move? I was like, my, because you were unhappy there. Oh yeah, yeah, you're right. I wasn't happy there. And so that's where like that support really helped to kind of from people that really deeply knew me and understood me, that helped me kind of stay the course, even if it was uncomfortable and like those long nights of lots of work and then school right after. It's very tiring. And I was dating my partner at the time, and he was like, I have no girlfriend. I don't know who she is. I never spend time with her because she's always studying. um, so yeah, there's absolutely sacrifices. Like, let's be clear, it's going to take effort continuously from you. But look where I am now.
Yeah, awesome. Next one here, does age play a role in pivoting into a new career role?
I don't think it's ever too late to pivot. I became a founder. I'm gonna date myself at 40. And in my mind, even in becoming a business owner, a founder today, I was like, Ma, you're too old to be a founder. You don't, in my mind, I was like, a founder looks like this type of persona. You can't do it. Like that's, you're, yeah, you go back to HR. But again, it was like one of those like, why am I telling myself that story? Where is that story coming from? Why can't you? Whose permission am I looking for? And it was like myself. I was the one getting in my own way of becoming an entrepreneur, of becoming a founder. And that's kind of been one of the most beautiful but painful parts of becoming a founder is that so much of my business is mirroring me and who I am as a person. And if I don't have conviction in who I am and what I'm building, how is anyone else supposed to help support me? So there was definitely a healing journey that I had to go through, and I still am honestly. Like we're always all trying to figure out the best versions of ourselves. So this age is a lifelong journey that we get to be a part of as we get older, of like getting closer and closer to our most authentic selves. Um, but yeah, I don't think age matters. It's never too late.
I
Yeah,
agree. I love that. That's a great reminder. We'll just give another minute here for questions. And then, Maya, I know you did have a slide you wanted to share. So we'll
yeah.
give a quick minute for that. And then just as a reminder, while we're waiting for questions, this session is being recorded, so we'll make sure to send that out afterwards. And then if you do think of a question later on, that's okay. You can always email us, and we'll make sure it gets through. And then I don't know if you were planning to share your LinkedIn, but would you be okay if I drop that into the chat?
Yeah, absolutely. And Hun, can you see my screen currently?
I can. Yep, it's up.
Amazing. Yay. Okay, cool. Yeah, the bottom barcode, feel free to bust out your phones. The bottom barcode is a link to my LinkedIn. If you want to use that to connect with me, I would love to connect with each one of you and help you in whatever's next in your journey. The code on the top is actually a link to our playtesting sign up. So as I mentioned before, I am building a video game that helps early career professionals discover their career paths and build the skills that employers are looking for. So if you know someone or are currently interested, we're focused on individuals in that the 16 to 25-year-old window, or what I like to say, like close enough. Would welcome them to play test. It's free. It's a way to be entered into an Amazon gift card drawing for $100. And it's really a way for you to test drive our video game that we've been working on. I would love to get feedback from you or anyone who's interested in playing a game to figure out what's next in their career. And just to summarize who I am a gaming startup founder. I'm an organizational psychologist. I'm a learning and HR executive and proud mom of a 2-year-old. So let's play, let's connect.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. When she first told me about LifeSparks, I was like, this is so cool, such a cool concept. And I looked a little bit into it too. You guys got really cool visuals. So yeah, definitely check that out. We did have one more question here from Brittany. Do you have a recommendation for someone like me who works incredibly hard just to get recognition, but instead ends up with more work, more misery, and less happiness? I still want the
Mm,
promotion to prove myself that I can get there, but deep down, I know it's not right, which is why I'm trying to pivot.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Brittany. And I feel you, I see you. I remember kind of being in that space too of like this phrase that I love slash hate is like the reward for doing a good job is more work. It's like, oh, Brittany's doing really well. She can do it. Just give her more stuff. So I had a similar experience with myself of like, man, Maya's really good at figuring out difficult problems. She can handle it. Let's throw more stuff at her because she can do it. And this was also when I was trying to figure out like, well, Maya, you shouldn't like you should always follow the rules. You shouldn't speak up. You should be quiet, right? And so then there was this kind of this disconnect of like, well, be quiet. You do what you're told, and you do exactly what you say, and your hard work speaks for itself, right? Um, and I guess my advice for you would be, it almost like is you kind of know the the answer by just kind of like your message alone, where like something inside of you is telling you this is not what you want. You can't explain it, but on paper, of course, go for that promotion. Of course, go get that because why wouldn't you? But even in that kind of message, there's something inside of you that's telling you this is not what you want. So then the question becomes like, well, why are you going for that promotion? And who are you proving yourself to? And do they need that to prove that you're enough? And so one of the things that I had to think about for myself, my journey involved a lot of um, affirmations, and sometimes it's like, okay, that's too woo woo. That's not me. But talking to myself and hyping myself up actually goes a really long way because there's so many things in our world, social media, news, and well-intentioned people, unsolicited advice that suggest us to go in directions that are not what we actually want, but we do it because there's, we get pulled in multiple directions. But there was a lot of healing in having some affirmations for myself. And one of the things that your story reminded me of was my affirmation that you are enough. Um, my big three in kind of like my first kind of years of healing were, um, and thank you to therapy. Therapy also helped with this too. But I don't need anyone's permission to do anything. I know what I'm talking about, and I don't have to explain myself. And I'll do the PC version of this. Like I, I don't need anyone. I don't need anyone's permission to do anything. I don't need anyone's permission to do anything because I do whatever the f I want. Um, so I hope there was a nugget in there that resonates with you, Brittany. But you know something about yourself that maybe isn't aligning with what your actions are doing, and maybe listen to her. What is she trying to tell you?
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that and for all the thoughtful and wonderful engagement as well. We did drop your LinkedIn in there, so please feel free to connect with my. If you have a question later on, you can always email us as well. But we'll go ahead and conclude today's session. Thank you all so much for joining us and just for the the transparent and the honest engagement. If this is your first time joining a WGU session, we're so glad to have you here. We hope that it gives you a sense of what our community is about, creating connections, sharing insights, and helping people make a positive impact in their lives. We'll make sure to follow up with the email and you'll get the recording. And then, of course, we'd like to extend a very sincere WGU thank you to you, Mai, for sharing your story. So honest, so transparent, and just encouraging to our community and closing us out for Career Transition Week. Your journey is such a motivating reminder that what may feel like a detour can become a destination that we're meant for. And leaning into discomfort can spark some real growth. So thank you so much for that. Thanks everyone for joining, and we hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
Yes, take care. Thanks. Bye.